I think in terms of comparing against the others is tricky and also not necessarily valid. I think in terms of the top level, all options provide a useful tool for both the buy side and the sell side, but they should all be considered separately in terms of what they can actually bring to the market, and in particular to the buyer in terms of how they're trying to target the relevant user around relevant content. But contextual is obviously purely around the context of the page, in terms of traditionally where contextual came from, and what we look at is purely the video assets. We can look at other assets around that, but the context of the video is key. And so when we look at the other type of solutions that are out there, as you mentioned, the universal IDs, of which there are obviously a number in market, first-party database solutions, again, a number in market and probabilistic targeting, and plus also when you're looking at clean rooms and other type of options out there. There's just a lot of confusion, I think, out there in the market in terms of what is best to use when third-party cookies do finally disappear and deprecate. And so therefore, there's definitely the market needs to clean up and align with a number of solutions, but it's still, I think, in terms of fragmented in terms of what solutions are best for both sides of the market. And so therefore, in terms of when I started, in terms of contextual could be seen alongside the others, but should also be seen on its own type of uniqueness in terms of what it can bring. Type of goes back to original advertising in terms of focusing adverts around the context of the page, because they're relevant to what that user's interested in reading or viewing. And that plus the other solutions in market are all massively helpful and can be combined. But as I say, it can cause confusion for the buyers. And then also, if you using them all together, it can really limit the amount, the type of size of the campaign around all the different parameters you're trying to target against. I think when you're looking at contextual solutions, you have to look at traditional contextual solutions, which are those are looking, and it moves on to the next question I know, which are looking at page level contextual, and those in terms of video level, which Connatix is looking at and solely looks at. And so the appeal to both is obviously up to the buyer in terms of what they're looking at. And I know that in terms of, in the next question, in terms of how then what pans out from the supply side of the business. And so there are challenges, I think, generally in terms of how contextual solutions are used and which contextual solution you're actually using. And for basically in terms of what you're actually trying to get out of using contextual. And so you've got to be very clear in terms of what your campaign objectives are from the buy side. And then also to make sure that, are you actually seeing and targeting the right supply based on what contextual solutions you're using? So I think the challenges are the fact that, again, we work in the video space. So a lot of the solutions are out there are morphing out of the display space and trying to get into video and CTV. And fundamentally, they have not come from the supply side. They come from the buy side. And therefore, you don't necessarily know exactly what that supply is about. And so I think the biggest challenge really is around contextual is clarity in the market in terms of what all the different contextual solutions offer and how they may, obviously how they differentiate, but also which ones are most relevant, particularly to video, because it's obviously it's not that new, but CTV, I guess, is a newer area that everyone's trying to get into. But is the context you're actually targeting around the actual asset the advert's going to appear around? I mean, look, I've having been a publisher and back some time now, when type of people are starting to look at type of contextual solutions as a publisher and two different type of hats on within two different publishing groups, we tried to basically shut them down because in effect they were illegally scraping the content and then monetizing the type of our content and our copyrighted material to basically get financial gain and then sell that onto the buy side. Now, obviously, from a legal perspective, things have type of moved on somewhat from there. And I'd say probably when you read some of the articles from some of the statements from the publishers, they're still not necessarily happy about that, and for good reason. And the main reason, again, if you use something like COVID as a case in point, that all the pages that were being contextualized and targeted, or sorry, type of the contextual elements are type of seeing it as COVID, as bad news, and scraping the page, and therefore making it not so attractive to the buy side, when in fact a lot of it could have been good news. It could have been very relevant to particular ad brands that were looking to target around that. And generally there are lots of eyeballs on those pages. Now, obviously, you've got to be careful in terms of what you're targeting against which content. But from a publisher perspective, whilst they're having more eyeballs than ever on their sites, they were actually, a lot of them making less money due to the fact of it being blocked by various different technologies. And also, to point out that a lot of these contextual companies who are in effect scraping are making an assumption based on their technology of what the context of that page is. And a lot of these companies obviously selling that data and their contextual solutions to the buy side and making money from the buy side, and the sell side, as in the publishers, are not benefiting from that at all. They may be benefiting if depending on how the context of their pages is being read and sort of packaged up to the buy side, but not directly in terms of the actual context of their content. And then traditionally, all these companies are looking at page level, they're looking at URL, they're looking at the words on the page. And so that basically is how it works, I guess, for display and in terms of the context of what's on the page. But video is a whole different ballgame. The video on the page is traditionally, type of, let's say, football, sport, use Manchester United as an example. The page might be around that. So the first video could well be a video featuring just football, or could be Manchester United. And the second video could be, depending on what the editorial choices, it could be another football story. It could be the biggest trending sports story of the day. So it could be cricket, or it could be the biggest trending news story, which could actually be totally different, or all of those in scenarios, different to the actual context of the page. And therefore, the video context is important to understand where your ad is going to appear, and is the context relevant to the advertiser. And for any contextual company to work in that space and to provide thorough and in terms of in-depth analysis of that video, you have to be within the publisher's site or within the player to understand what the context of that video is. And so all traditional contextual companies who come from a display background do not have the technology to scrape video, because they don't sit on the publisher's page. Connatix, for example, we have our own video technology, our own player, and we have our own AI. So it sits within the page. We have a contract with the publisher. We have a video sitting within the page, within our player, and we can contextually target contextually look at that piece of content, and therefore allow buyers to target around the contextual segments they're looking to target against. And so therefore, in terms of how both sides can leverage video, and in particular, you need to make sure you're working, first of all, with a contextual partner that can look at the video, can understand the video, and obviously pass back the information to the buy side, and also work directly with a supplier, so you have direct access to that actual video unit and that video content sitting within the unit and the video player. So I think, as third-party cookies deprecate, it's absolutely key that the ecosystem understands the difference between traditional, as I describe it, in type of contextual scrapers of page, and to those that can actually look at video, analyze video, and then pass back the relevant contextual information to the buy side, so that buyers are not spending brand money and marketers' money against the wrong kind of content, and also so the supply side are making sure that there's relevant advertising for their users within their video units. And so third-party cookies deprecation will definitely speed that up, because obviously there are fewer data points in which buyers are used to targeting against. We're seeing more move and more ask for contextual targeting now. I'd say that the buy side are being slow to adopt technologies that are out there and solutions that are out there to enable them to target around contextual. But as we get closer to third-party deprecation, I think we'll see a real speed up in terms of the buy side looking at solutions that can actually give them valid data to make sure that they can prove to their clients, the brands, that they're actually targeting in a brand safe and targeted way around using video technology. So always love being on stage to a certain degree. Look, ATS is always a good event. You get, both sides of the market there. There are always interesting debates. Not only from the debate side of being on stage, it's good to see people. Even though COVID finished a while ago, it's still good to get outside and mingle and see people and exchange views of where the market's going. Yes, I'll definitely be talking about contextual and around video. Again, not just from the fact I work for Connatix, but it's a growing area and it's an important area of the business. So excited to always go along. There'll be a discussion. Obviously, a number of different brands are talking. It's always good to hear what the brands have to say. At the end, they have the money, they have the budgets. And without them, obviously, there's no type of ecosystem that then moves that money through to the publisher. And so for me, it's always interesting to hear what the brands are doing and how they're looking to type of work with their agencies to execute the money.